Hello, everyone, and welcome to another day, another awesome stream. And very excited about this one as well. My name is Sayam Pathak, and I'm a CNCF ambassador working as Director of Technical Evangelism at Civo, building the next gen cloud platform. You keep hearing me about that. Make sure you try that as well. We have amazing stuff created for the community as well, like Civo Academy, where you can learn Kubernetes from scratch for free. No credit card required for learning for the academy, so we made sure you are kind of learning it for free. Apart from this, subscribe to the channel because that's what keeps me going. It's like 5.4K subscribers, which is good. I never imagined that when I started off, but it's going good. And the kind of plan is to get to 10K by the year end. Not so difficult, and I'm trying to be realistic. It can happen, so we'll try our best to put out more and more awesome content so that you people can learn. So here we learn many of the cloud native technologies, many of the cloud native streams, different tools, different projects, new projects. Alessandro, who you are seeing on the screen, has been there before. We have talked about Fuse ML. I'll just paste the link to that previous video, because that talks not only about Fuse ML, but it also talks about the basics, by machine learning for cloud native. What is ML ops? What is AI ops? Where does they all fit in, and all that stuff. So I think that is pretty interesting talk that you should definitely watch. And today we'll be talking all about K3ai. So this is a project that I have kind of been involved in long back, when it was like now it is completely redesigned. So I have seen the past version as well, and I'm excited to see what Alessandro has cooked up with the new complete redesign of the project and what it actually is. So we'll be learning all about K3ai today. The its demo, so how it actually works. So there'll be a lot of hands on today with respect to the tool, what it does, how it helps you, what it is, what are its use cases, what is the vision, how you people can get involved and contribute to make it huge and make it big. Because it can lead to actually many use cases. So I think it'll be great if you can get involved early on, because it's kind of the early stages for the project. Get on early, and it'll be good for everyone. So those who are there, I'll put you on the screen. Hello to all the people who have joined. Again, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share all the awesome content that is being put out on the streams. With that, Alessandro, please
Yep.
introduce yourself to the community. So glad to have you back again.
Well, first of all, you I just want to say something that you are too humble, actually, because you were one of the greatest contributors to the initial K2r development. And probably what you will see here, you will recognize it because most of the things you see are part of the many our conversation we had in the past. So that's I have to thank you actually for all the amazing things you are doing with your YouTube channel, and not only that. So let me start sharing my screen and start from a little bit of things. So, okay, there you go. Okay, so first things first. What is K2ai? Who I am? Why we are here, and so on. Where we are going, actually. So let me start from there. So who I am? Well, let's say I have a daily job as a senior product manager for artificial intelligence at SUSE. For those that don't know SUSE is one of the longest Linux kernel maintainer worldwide. We also acquired last year Rancher. So actually, we offer the amazing Rancher K2s and Rancher Archie solution. So this is my Twitter handle. If you want to reach out to me, bring your own AI. Feel free actually to add me, follow me, we follow back, and etc. What is K2ai? K3i is a lightweight tool to get an AI infrastructure stack up in minutes. What does it mean? Let's say you want to learn AI. And if you want to learn AI, you probably start to read documentation around tools like MLflow, Kubeflow pipelines specifically, maybe Katib, or other many other tools. And in most cases, you will stumble upon, oh, you need to set up a Kubernetes cluster. or you need to then deploy this manifest. You need to do this, you need to do that. There's a lot of infrastructure complexity, but not necessarily you're an infrastructure expert. You just want to play with those tools. You want to learn those tools. Or maybe the other use case could be that you're actually a DevOps and you want to have a simple way to test your CI/CDs, where you need to deploy a cluster, deploy specific AI tools, deploy a pipeline there, get that result out, and decide what to do. It's really just quick and dirty. Do that, get the results, move to the next phase. So this is all about K3ai. K3ai comes out from Kubernetes training for AI, but also the initial idea was because we were using Rancher K2as as a lightweight Kubernetes to run AI tools on top of it. So it evolved over time. And in the last month, I basically rewrite completely the tool. It's a tool in Golang as a definition. And actually, we rebuilt it in a way that should be easy and logic for humans to follow. So how it works is pretty simple. This is all you need to learn about K3ai. You have to download it. You have to run K3ai app to configure it. And then you can deploy either a cluster or a plugin and then run it. Means run your code on top of it. That's it. 4 steps, easy to remember. And to help you even more, we actually put the K3ai steps on the website. So let me bring you the website. The website is even more easier, k3i.in. It will redirect to k3i.github.io, but actually K3ai in, and you get the same 4 steps there. K3ai app, deploy, run. So in order to actually show you how K3ai works, then I will basically give you the logic behind the scenes and what actually is happening, how we develop K3ai. And then finally, we will get into the demo. So what does K3ai exactly when we run those commands? The first step is K3ai is an executable that runs on your laptop. When you do K3ai app, we do basically 2 actions. The first action is about download the config JSON that allow you to configure K3ai for you, like what you want to see as a list of plugins or possible installation tools. If you want to do, for example, certain kind of restriction. For example, we do support a list of clusters that we'll see in a minute. You don't want to expose all of them, you just want to expose some of them. You can actually add the config JSON that way. Also, we will create in your home directory a folder named .k3ai. Within that, we basically save all the configuration and tools that we need to use in K3ai. Like, for example, a database to get a sense of what you're doing with K3ai, like which cluster you deployed, what inside those clusters, how to basically communicate back with those clusters, etc. Then all you have to run is basically 2 actions. So there's a K3ai plus the command, what you want to do. I want to operate on clusters, I want to operate on plugin. The action along with that, I want to operate on cluster and I want to deploy a cluster, or I want to operate on plugin and I want to deploy a plugin, or remove, or list. So it's pretty easy, it's pretty logic. It always follow the same logic. So you learn once, you reuse multiple times. And from there, basically, you go up and running. So in order to do that, let's jump immediately on the demo, because I think that is where actually we can go there. I see in the meantime a question from Suman: is K3ai integrated with K3ai so can be run on any Kubernetes flower type? So 2 things. 1, no, it can run on any Kubernetes, but we take care of Kubernetes as well. So that means if you already have a Kubernetes and you already have your kubeconfig configure, you can start from the plugins directly. But if you don't have anything, like I have in my case, we will take care of that. So let me show you how to do that immediately. The first things is how to get K3ai. You can go on the website and download it. You can go on GitHub and download it, or you can even use, and I will not run entirely that, but you can even use the simple command from curl. And the moment you will basically run this command, basically we will download the script, install the script for you, install the binary for you, the latest version, and that's it. That's all you need actually to start. So it's super simple. Once you get there, all you have to run is K3ai. Here's all the options that I explained before. There's a couple of options more that I did not explain yet. The down, that is to remove K3ai once you're done, and run, that actually allow you to execute a piece of code on a given cluster. And we will go through that. But let's start with the basics. The basics is K3ai app. K3ai app is going to configure K3ai for me, but if it is already configured, K3ai app is also using to update the information within K3ai app. So I'm going to start. This is the first time, so it welcomed me, and it's asked me, okay, can you give me your GitHub token? Now, this is really a super simple token. It's just something that we use to bypass the limit of API authentication in GitHub and get more requests. Once we copy the token, it checked the token and said, okay, the token is okay. It means you can actually access the API. Now, because we don't want to ask you for the token every time, can we save it? You can even say no, we will ask for the GitHub token every time. But if you say yes, we will just take it. Just be, I warn you, we are saving your token as it is as an end file in your computer. There's plenty of ideas and plenty of other approaches to do that. That was a simple way to start. So I'm saying yes, okay, K2r is loading the configuration for me. Then using that token to go out there and say, hey, I need to create a database and fill in the database with the plugins. Means show you everything that I actually can do within K2ai. As you see, it's a super fast command. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on your bandwidth. That's it. That's all I have to do. Now, I'm just reducing a little bit my folder because otherwise it can actually, the printing is not very well, but actually, then I can actually say what? Well, let's start from the clusters. K3ai clusters. List, show me what? Everything. Oops. Those are the clusters that I can install with K3ai. And you see actually there's in development and available. What does it mean? That means that in development means that we already publish that cluster, but we'll keep working on it to be sure that everything works as expected. So right now you cannot use it, but you can already see it. It's like a living roadmap for you. But clusters are not enough. So we can say K3ai plugin list -- what, show me everything again. And let me just do this. And here's the list of plugins. I think you barely see that, but we got Airflow, we got Argo Workflows, we got Qflow, all the components, single components of Qflow. So you don't have to install Qflow in a single step. That is super heavy, but you can decide which component you want to use. And we also have MLflow, but not only. We are working, for example, on Great Expectation for data analysis. And as you can see, in that case, it's in development. So that's all I need to start. So, well, again, let's start with something. K2ai app is done. The configuration is there. Now, when I operate on what? First things first is the infrastructure. K3ai cluster. What I can do? Deploy cluster list. We already seen that. Remove a cluster. And in our case, stick with the legacy, like cluster deploy type of cluster K3s. We started from there. Let's keep going with K3s. Give a name to the cluster. Now, this is a logic name. It's just a way for you to identify the cluster, because maybe you can have tens, even hundreds of clusters deployed. You need to identify them. Keep in mind that in some cases, K3s as an example, not necessarily we are able to deploy the cluster with the same name. Because maybe they don't support it. For example, K3d support the name of a cluster, name in a cluster. K3s doesn't support the name in a cluster. There's a long issue on their repo on that. But let me say this will be my cluster for today. And what we do? Well, we do the easiest things ever. We rely on the upstream installation part of K3s. So you always be sure that the process is exactly what expected to be, because this is exactly what they're using to install their cluster. Job done. Cluster is there. Now, because this is a demo, so I'm deep dive a little bit on things, and just to show you actually that everything is there. So let me just reduce a little bit the things. And I know where actually how it operate the cluster, etc. So I'm going to hack a little bit my configuration, and I'm actually pass my config actually. Okay, let's see now. Just to open up a tool to show you that the cluster is up and running and what is happening on the cluster. Now, you see on the right, I did the kubeconfig exposure, but actually on this side, I did nothing. So there's no kubeconfig there. There's no kube control, there's OM chart, there's nothing there. So, okay, we say, well, just deploy cluster. As you see, the context name is default. This is because of K2s. But I can even do something like install another cluster. Now, because of performance reason, I'm not going to do that. So the first step, website, says K3ai up, done. K3ai cluster deploy, K3 is my cluster in this case, done. Let's do for the second step, the third step, deploy a tool like MLflow. So let me just bring a little bit more here and say, okay, a bit more. Just put this guy here, and then we reduce K2ai. But where you want to operate on the plugins, how do you want to call it? Oh, sorry, MLflow. Where target? So I'm using the short names just to make it easier to read. Where? On my cluster. Am I sure I got the my cluster done here? Before running that, let me show you that. Remember list dash all, show me all the cluster capabilities. Show me the deployments. Deployed, sorry. Your cluster. My cluster, K3s, actually is installed. I know I have a cluster here. So now I know that I can do that. So now I can actually say K3ai plugin deploy MLflow on target my cluster. And because I'm gonna run it and I want to show you actually what is happening behind the scenes, let me do this way. Start in the cluster, and magically we go through the plugins. We start to install Minio. By the way, MLflow doesn't have an official installation process for Kubernetes. K3ai does. We installed Minio. We're going to install Postgres. We're going to install MLflow, and you will get an amazing MLflow installation of your Kubernetes cluster. And as you can see, we check out what's happening on your cluster behind the scenes. All you have to do, plugin deploy. That's what you need to run. You don't need anything more. Now, there's a bit of challenges there that we need to solve. For example, once everything will be finished, how do we expose the services for you? So we typically use node port to do that. But in some cases, like kind, there's a bit of limitation with extra ports and etc. that we need to overcome. So in some cases, it could happen that the node port doesn't really work. K3s works, kind, there's a limitation that we need to figure out how to do so. So I'm just waiting for MLflow to finish. And basically, that's almost ready. Once we finish, it will tell me, here's your URL to access. And well, if we're lucky and everything works, if the demo gods are with me, we will see that in a second. Oh, it's creating a service. I think the container is almost up and running. And once it will be up and running, we will go there. Just bear with me. So, Sayam, so far, you like it?
Yep. I think that's pretty interesting. Like you just have, a couple of commands mentioned in the quick start. First, you have, download the K3ai, similar to the fashion that you download, actually run the K3s cluster,
Yeah.
and then you have K3ai up for loading the configuration, where you have your GitHub personal token, so that the API call limitation is not there, and then you can have it saved, or you can
Yeah.
apply it again and again whenever you do K3i up to
Yeah.
you. and then you just create the clusters, and
Yep.
interesting list of the clusters which is already available, like Sivo is there, EKS Anywhere is
Yep.
there, K3s obviously is there, then Kind is there, and I think Tanzu is in development as well.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty wide variety of the clusters that is getting
Yep.
supported over there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
The idea is to basically have support for four kind of clusters if you want. One is Docker in Docker kind of clusters, and kind is a good representation. Lightweight kind of cluster like K2s. Cloud providers, Sivo, that is absolutely that is my favorite actually provider. And of course, something that stays in the middle, like Tanzu and AKS Anywhere, because they can either be run on local, etc. Now, just as I mentioned, both of them actually are kind behind the scenes.
yep,
So they're falling to somewhat in the Docker in Docker. So plugin is being published. It says, hey, click here and you will be basically presented there. Let's see actually if it is, I don't know where actually it probably did not do that. So let me just copy and come here and say, and MLflow is up and running. Now, as you can see, this is my demo environment, so I already have a couple of runs there, but let's don't care about that right now. So this is MLflow. This is the tool that I want to learn. Now, I'm going to MLflow and tutorial and says, well, okay, you start following those and etc. And for example, tutorial example, I'm going for the XGBoost tutorial and boom, I'm landed up here. And that's exactly again the same problem of before. Okay, this is the, how do I run this? Python train, what MLflow UI, what should I run? And I'm lost. Can I make it simpler? Okay, let's grab github.com, K2ai, quick start. It's exactly the same example as before. I just cloned that example just to make it super, super, super easy to start. But actually, this is just to say, do you have a repo? Fine. Do you have code there? Fine. In this case, this is MLflow. Fine. So let me do something like this. Sometimes it could be that is buggy, this stuff, but let me just do this. What if I say K2ai, this one. Oh, actually, I can actually close it. Run what? Give me a source like https github.com/K2ai/quick start. Give me a backend, MLflow, and tell me where I need to run these as long as MLflow is there. My cluster. That's all I need. Run my code using MLflow as a backend on that cluster. Later, let's say in a month from now, I will release the config. So you bring me a config on a repo, and I will do that. What the config does, that just is set up the cluster, set up the plugin, run the code in one single file. But right now is like that. I'm running it. Initializing code means, hey, what's the quick start? I'm doing some magic behind the scenes that I will show you in a minute. And once the magic occurs, then I will start to execute the code. And if everything goes right, I should have a nice new results here in the MLflow. So basically, if everything goes in the right direction, I should see a 1 at some point, because eventually something will happen on top. Now, while it's doing this, you see that there's a deployment in the middle. There's something called K2r Executor. Then something's happening again. There's a bit of timeouts there, just because I need to check that everything's work. And I will see something happen. Again, I hope you like the nice CLI. So while we're waiting, let me give you a little bit more details on how all this is being developed. It's working, please wait. So it's starting to do something. So that means that if I check out, oh, we got a 1 here, means something is happening. Let's do a refresh. Hey, we got something new coming here. And when we go there, though, there's starting to be some things. So there's also some artifacts not yet recorded. So let's go there and do a refresh and see what's happening. What did they finish? No, not yet. It's still executing. There's a lot of stuff that need to be executed in that pipeline, but I don't care. I don't see the complexity. All I have to do is just focus on the tool that I want to learn. All I have to care is that my CI is working. I will get the results done for me, and that's all I care. I don't care about anything else. So it's keep running and running and running. At some point, it will tell me, oh, yeah, I'm almost finished. So keep running there. I will explain in a minute what it does behind the scenes. Well, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than expected, actually. That's it. At some point, you will see a nice finish loader that will say, job done, check on the double things. Actually, I know what is happening while we're waiting. Well, what is happening is that it's executing everything within that. And for example, this is MLflow. You need to install all those libraries within the project. And once you install all those libraries, you need to go there and execute this code within that. That's all you need to do. And so it's pretty complex behind the scenes. And we're waiting for that, but actually it's going up and running and keep running and try to figure out that. Well, we will see. We will get there. What is happening behind the scenes? Let me just open up here while we're waiting for that. So the executor actually is responsible to communicate back with the various tools. In this case, MLflow. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. There you go. Done. Sorry for the things it was like that thing. But if I come here, then you see there's a new model here. 2 minutes. Everything's been created for me. I have a nice pipeline run. This is not enough, by the way. This is not enough. Because we did not just done that, but we exposed the results on your local computer. And in fact, if I point to the model, I can actually see there's a couple of runs here. And if I double check here, the run is C93E, C93E, and I got my weights there. And I also got my model exposed. That is exactly the same that you can see here that actually is Minio. So what I'm doing is exposing the Minio installation you got as a folder on your local computer so you can interact with Minio and get the result done. Now, this DB in production doesn't exist, but you are experimenting, you are learning, so that's super useful for you. And all you have to do is just bring me a repo. Now, next release 1.0.1, it will have an improvement because one of the limitations I have right now is that your code needs to be in the root of your repo. But if you look at many examples out there, they don't necessarily have these. They sometimes have a folder. So the idea is that you will pass me the root folder, where your example need to be executed. So we'll clone basically gclone the repo and then pick up only the folder and execute the folder. So we're super smart for that. So what's behind K2ai and what's next, we still have to have there. So we said, well, okay, cool. So now we got K2ai, we got the cluster, and we got everything there. Can I run something else? Well, we are on my cluster. And if you remember right, I'm not sure actually this works.
Just before
Yeah.
before we go on, I have a couple of questions. One is from Suman. When we do K3ai up, there was a database installation. So which DB was that? Like where it was installing? Which
SQLite.
DB was that?
SQLite, and I'm going to show you exactly. Let me do this. We will do this. Show you exactly what happened when I did the K3ai up. So the first thing is, remember I said we create a directory K3ai. Let me open up maybe this one so that's super easy to read. You remember we I said, well, we will create a K2i under the config. If you don't have the config folder, don't worry, I will work config folder for you as well. Why in .config? This is the standard way your configuration file goes. So if I go there, you will see that the config JSON file there. And if I look for the config JSON, basically you see the configuration. Why I create a config JSON file? As I said before, because this way you can constrain or restrict or customize K3i to your demands. Let's say that, for example, you want to deploy remotely K3i on all the laptop of your data scientist in your company, and you want to be sure that only K3s can be run, or only certain plugins from a certain Git repo, not the K3i repo, but your custom K3i repo. This is why we do this. So the plugins can be said, hey, K3i, do the list not from the K3i public repos, but from my repos. That's the first things. The second thing is, as said, we created a folder called K2.K3i, where there's DB. The DB is a SQLite. Why SQLite? Because we don't really need too fancy complexity there. Maybe later we will deploy a different kind of database. There's many options there. I mean, if you have bring your ideas on the K3i repo. That's super cool. I'm not an expert on database, to be honest. I'm using the most simple things there. As you can see, there's also other stuff there. These are dynamic stuff. For example, I deploy K2s. Now, K2s has options to be deployed and override your config file if you have a config file, if you have kube control. But I said I don't have kube control on my machine. So how is this happening? First things, we actually, copy the config that K3is generate on demand and inside .K3i with the name of your cluster. So we know that it's there. And when you remove the cluster, we will remove everything there. The second thing is that actually K3i use some CLI there. So we act as an alias. So you don't have to care about, oh, do I need to download kube control? But even further, why we do that? Let's say that you have kube control on your machine. Maybe it's kube control on a specific version. But when we run the cluster, we use different version. We don't want to overwrite your existing configuration. That's why we're using things there. So it's super cool and super simple. And when you run a plugin, if we need to do anything like clone a specific repo or whatever, then we will do that for you. But that makes the magic of K3i. That means that now I'm on my cluster. On my cluster, there's everything there, and I can say K3ai plugin. What? Deploy new plugin. What plugin? Name. Argo workflow. Where? Well, as usual, my cluster. Go for it. And it goes there for it. And it's super complex and it has a super things there. But I don't care. K3i takes care of me. That's all I need to know. And once we will be finished, again, it will expose node port and tells me, okay, here's it where it is your Argo server. Maybe it will sometimes maybe we'll find out, I don't know, an error or whatever, I don't know. We will see in a second. That's all you care. And then I got Argo workflows on my machine with MLflow, and I can keep learning and keep using them. It's just a matter of understanding what to do. There you go, server patched, service is there. Let's see what will finish there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. The configuration is helping a lot in terms of what you can use,
Yeah,
which clusters you can create when you are working maybe in a private kind of environment where you have your private repositories.
yeah,
You want to have only trusted repositories that you can
yeah.
pull in code from. So I think that makes sense to have all the configuration options. Right now, I think SQLite is the option, and it's not pluggable, right? Because there was a
Um,
question like, is it a pluggable DB or
no, it's
because
not
it's
yet a
not doing
pluggable
much.
DB. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it's not.
well, yes and no. I mean, let's say that technically speaking, yes. If I prepare a database and I throw the database into the K2ai installation you got, K2ai will make use of the DB as long as the DB is in the same path. To make it actually pluggable, what I need to achieve is not just that, but also identify the DB and be sure that if you throw me a new DB, you cannot overwrite without some certain action. I need to do
Right.
some security around. But yes, technically speaking, is doable. The other good point to your point, Sayam, is that the plugins that I think I need to explain how they work, because those are really the magic behind K3i.
Yep.
Now,
Just before that,
yeah, yeah,
one question from the previous run that you did for the XG boost
yeah.
example. There was an executor that was running. You said, yeah, no, there was some magic behind the scenes that it is doing. So,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is that magic?
yeah, absolutely. Let me show you this. Let me close for a second this one. So what we do in K3ai, no, sorry, not this one. I was going in completely different direction. Sorry. What we've done is actually creating the K2r Executor. Now, the K2r Executor is a simple Docker image that has all the logic to recognize the backend. So based on the backend, we execute the backend as explaining in their documentation. So for MLflow, we are currently using the MLflow API. For Qflow, depending if you're running pipelines against Argo or Tekton, we are using the KFP for Argo, the KFP for Tekton, the SDK. For Airflow, the Airflow CLI and API, and etc. That means basically that you don't have to care about those libraries. We care about that. We got Python in there. Later, we will add other languages. But the idea is that K2r Executor will also expose a minimal Jupyter notebook within that. So you will be able to either run the code as it is, run it as a Jupyter, so running the Jupyter notebook, or even better, open up a Jupyter and just execute it from within the K2r Executor. That's the magic behind the scenes that we're in. In the first round of development, what I've done was create the executor, run your code, and destroy the executor. That was my logic was something really nice. But then I discovered actually that the problem was every time it would override the same run in MLflow. So you wouldn't have this one. And this one actually is useful for you because, for example, in the case of MLflow, you can compare runs. So in order to keep having the same value for the tools, I decided to not destroy the things. And you see actually that I can, for example, do something like that. That is super useful for example, for the people. So that's basically the behind the scenes. I'm both, yes, done. And if everything goes right, yes, there's still sometimes I make stupid errors, like I forget to add an S to the folder of Argo, and boom, Argo done. I want to learn Argo. Oh, well, okay, Argo will drive me through these and say, hey, you can use, for example, like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. There's this one, create, and it's actually running. And in fact, if I come here and say, hey, what's happening? You see lovely is the pipeline that actually is happening right now on my side. Uh, there you go. And he's there. And you can see the containers and input output summary, and you probably can get also the logs, like the main, the init is waiting for the data and so on. Did I have to learn how to deploy Argo? Did I have to understand how Argo can be run on top of Kubernetes and etc., etc., etc.? No. All I've done was K3ai plugin, deploy Argo on this cluster. That's it. That's all I need. And once it's finished, hello Argo. And as you can see, the green says that everything's been that. So it's super simple. Now, how complex is to support all this stuff, especially when it comes to the plugins? Because maybe you want to contribute to a project. And so how complex could be like that? Well, comes it comes out that actually is super simple. So the first things was, no, let me grab, I got the template here. And I got the template because in the next, I'm not sure in 1.0.1, maybe in 1.0.2, that means 2 months from now, I will have a cookie cutter. K3ai cookie cutter will create the plugin structure for you, and you just have to fill in it with your data. Now, unmimic, customize, because people that knows how to do stuff, you better copy them sometimes. So the first thing is, as you can see, I got this API call here. And actually, I'm not using the API yet, but is in the roadmap to actually get the API. What kind of plugin can be? Application, infrastructure, clusters, or bundle, a mix of them. You give me some metadata, like give me a name for this plugin to be recognized, give me a description, give me a tag, because later we will filter out through tags, like show me all the plugins of type Qflow. And give me a version. If you have a specific version or you're using the latest version every time. Finally, give me the resources. And the resources can be either something within that plugin or something in other places. And what kind of resources? Let's take a look at MLflow, right? K2ai says, let me just bring a little bit more because otherwise you cannot really read it. Okay. Before actually install MLflow, you have to install everything within the common Minio folder and everything within the common PostgreSQL. Now, if you are familiar with Customize, you will recognize the same structure. When you go in the base, it's not just about the base, because when I go into the base, and the base is, well, can I tell you that actually go through it at these sides of the screen is really challenging. That's super fun. Like I have no idea where I am on the page, totally. But base and overlays, exactly like customize. The base is the basic logic. The overlays is where you can customize the base. That means that if you fork the plugins and you use it as your custom, you can do amazing things. And again, in the base, what you got there? In the K3ai, we said this is the logic. In the base, this is the first logic of things. Plugin.yml, this is the name of the file every time. And in the plugin.yml file, what we got? API, the kind is application, and then the resources. This is pure customized. What are the resources? Path. And we do support kube control. Literally, we are executing kube control commands. Customize, we execute customize command. Elm, we execute unchart. Shell, we execute a shell binary directly on your laptop. So basically, I'm going to add PowerShell along with the Windows support as well. And you get basically a path, like in this case, is a kube control command. Apply those manifests, the upstream manifests from MLflow. In my case, these are my manifests, because you remember MLflow doesn't exist in Kubernetes. If you have any arguments and how you expose them, kube control, finally, do I need to expose the results of this command or not? Wait for true. Wait for the command to be completed and expose it. For example, let's take a look at some of the infrastructure plugins, and you will see actually they're pretty cool. Where I am, I have no idea where I am right now. Okay, new code, I think. Oh, let me just. Okay, this is a little bit easier. Infrastructure. Let's take, for example, K2s. And in the case of K2s, let's take the plugin. And here's where you can perceive the value of the args. This is the standard way to install K2s as per K2s documentation. And it will give you this K2s.io, if I remember right. This is exactly the same command. Now, if I go through the K2s documentation, I will find there's a bunch of amazing flags that I can run it. These are the args. You can put there all the args of K2s, and I will take care of them. For example, we are saying, hey, use the config mode, say for 644, so I can actually read it and using it, for example, to copy it. And don't install traffic because unfortunately, the majority of AI tools require Istio, so we take also the Istio installation. And where is the K3s standard default kube config, so I know where to pick it up. Kind shell, I'm executing a bash script here. And if you need to uninstall K2s, all you have to run is this command. You tell me, but I think that this is a super easy way to create a plugin. All you have to do is just go for the documentation, read how to install it, and put it there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty dope. The way that you have made the contribution of the plugins is pretty neat, and it's very simple. I mean, it's actually kind of no code stuff that
Yeah,
people can
yeah,
that people can contribute in a way.
yeah. Let's say, for example, um, in the case of Kind, I'm going down into Kind, and Kind has the upstream Kind installation with the args, still shell, how to deploy. You see, actually, we are using a combination here. Like sometimes I don't know what you're going to do. Like you want to pass a custom name for the cluster. So this is that come out from the L template configuration. Tells K2ai, if you see that, replace these with the input from the user. Now later I said the config file will be there exactly for that reason. For the reason that you can have a similar EML file where you can describe the infrastructure, the tools, and the pipeline. One single config file, K2ai run dash config. This is my GitHub repo, and that's done. And later we will transform K2ai in a GitHub Actions. You got a GitHub repo, you put the GitHub action, K2ai GitHub action there, and the config file, job done. You will get the results. So move back to the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the demo so far. Where start? Well, we got a website, K2ai.in, super simple. We got the GitHub, K2ai plugins, quick starts, and etc. We have a discourse server, the community server for K2ai. We used to have the Slack channel. We have discourse now because it allows us to have more capabilities there, especially running the community meeting. And we got an handle, K3ai project on Twitter. Follow us. We're more than happy actually to go there. But super important things. Well, if you like what you see here, actually, the first things that really help out is just going the K3ai stuff, go for there and add a star there. I already see that there's a 6 stars there. Super thank you for that. Because that's what allow us to keep running K3ai, the fact that you people likes it. And this is all you need. You want to contribute? Fine. You come here in the K2r project, you log in. Oops, sorry. That's really hard. You log in on the K3ai, you go there, you open up an issue. That's all you need to do. If it is just an idea, it's okay. It's just letting us. There's already some things there, something that actually you can help with, like I'm gonna do the Kubeflow pipeline in one click, exactly like MLflow with the tutorials. You can help out there, just test it out. Or I'm gonna to test out K2r on Mac, on ARM, on Windows. Windows need to be rewrite a little bit. Just bring the binary, run it on your Mac. Does it work? Yes. Does it not work? No. The run doesn't work. This other stuff doesn't work. Let me know. Open the issue as a bug, so I can actually fix it. That's super. That's just a way to contribute. And well, that's all you need to do. And at that point, if you're a contributor, here's like, this is for you, Sayam, because I'm pretty sure that you will get there. Once you're a contributor, or if you are there, all you have to do is just, you can actually be an employer of K3ai. That actually is a non-existent company. It's a community company, but I'm more than happy to have you as employer of K3ai and put you on LinkedIn, like I did. So basically, you can go there and get something cool like that. Like Alex Festa is a K3ai employer. That's it. That's cool. Like, hey, I'm a contributor of K3ai. Let the world knows that. That's all you need from me and from K2ai. And well, if you have a question, shout me a question. Otherwise, basically, that's all I have to present for today.
Yep, I think that's pretty amazing, Alessandro. Like, you always explain awesome, and today was hands-on. I really loved the K3ai. It's kind of redesigned. It's they join the Discord, check
Yeah,
out their the GitHub repository. I think the plugin contribution is super simple. That anybody can contribute, and we can make it a tool, a default tool, just like K3s is there right now, for default local
yeah,
development. We can make K3ai as a default local learning tool for
yeah,
any of the AI tools out there on
yeah,
Kubernetes. And I think that's a very good starting point. That's what we want, right? We
yeah,
want the clusters quickly. We want the tools to be installed quickly and quickly get hands on to the stuff, because cloud native ecosystem is growing. And we want, if you want to get hands on, you don't want to get stuck for days
yeah,
just installing a
yeah,
tool. So I
yeah,
think that doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Alessandro, can you talk a couple of minutes about the CLI best
yeah, yeah.
practices that you have used to create the CLI?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me bring the K2ai README notes. So when I started to rewrite K2ai, the first things that I stumbled upon was how do I make the CLI human readable? Means how could be really logic for a user to learn quickly the CLI and using it. And while I was doing some research around that, I stumbled on this amazing website, Command Line Interface Guidelines, that is an open source project. And this open source project that is being written by a bunch of great people that, as you can see, one of them is, for example, the co-creator of the two of them are co-creator of Docker Compose. The idea was actually to design a philosophy to do an introduction to the philosophy of a CLI. And this website basically guides you to all the things that you need to explore when you actually run the documentation. For example, I'm just picking up randomly something. If you have an help, how the help actually should works. With example, this is why should works, why it should be there. For example, if you got the documentation or you got the outputs, how those outputs should be placed. In a CLI, you should always have the output in a standard error, standard out. So this way, actually, you can get there. Even the naming of the things, use names that actually allow you to recognize the names. And in fact, if you look at CLI, I try to get there. K3ai, and let me bring these to the common reference we got. K3ai, command, action, option. K3ai, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to run something against the cluster. I want to deploy a cluster. I want to deploy a cluster of the type K3s, and I want to deploy a cluster of type K3s with the name my cluster. And the same logic apply almost equal to the plugins. I want to operate on a plugin. I want to deploy a plugin. I want to deploy a plugin named MFlow, and I want to deploy a plugin named MFlow on my cluster. Super logic. It's so simple that you get this in mind after one time, or it should be like that. I hope it is like that. Other things that actually I stumble upon. So CLIG.dev, command line guidelines.dev is super cool project. It's literally really super dope project. You can find it on GitHub. Actually, the URL is github.com CLI-guidelines, and you will end up here. And you see already 1015K stars. They're super cool. Another things actually that I use it are a couple of things that I really want to mention, like Docosaurus. Docosaurus, now we all keep saying that Facebook is really bad, but it's not. Facebook open source, they built this amazing project called Docosaurus. I help you to build a website based on Node.js literally in minutes. And this is exactly what you see here. All this stuff is built on Markdown So is a repo in your GitHub repos, and it's so simple. But I wanted also, and you see, actually, I have all the fancy stuff, switching the theme and etc. But I also want some cool images there. For example, in the case of K2ai, and there's another great project uh, that is being developed by Caterina Lipteo Sony. I think it is Lipti Sony. I'm sorry about that. That is android.com. And again, this is open source images for you, literally. You can pick up the images, you can pick up the colors, and etc. You can use it in your own project. So it's open source for open source. Finally, I did not yet mention all of them, but the usual suspect: Cobra and Viper as the libraries for Golang. This is pure Golang because there's plenty of project in Python, but I think Golang is way better to do that, and so on and so on and so on. So those are the things that actually I bet. Oh, we got 7 stars. Cool. Thank you, people. Really, really appreciate that. So that's it.
Awesome.
That's all we got.
Yep, I think that's pretty interesting. It was nice to touch upon all these things. I mean, really like the project, so would encourage everyone to check that out, raise issues, give stars, keep learning, or at least use it for your learning. So
Yep.
that is also great, and keep contributing. And thank you, Alessandro, once again for being on the stream and being super awesome as you always are. And you'll always
Thank
find
you.
me in the Discord and in the K3i community contributing stuff. So I'll
Yep.
always be there. And Yep, thank you everyone for tuning in. And We'll be having great sessions lined up for the next week. It's basically a CI/CD week that I'll be doing. A lot of interesting sessions. I haven't announced it yet, so people who are watching live are the first ones who are hearing it firsthand. Yep, someone is saying like super cool, Alessandro, really cool project to explore. So I think that's pretty good. So yep, thank you all for tuning in and showing your support. Make sure you check the project out, and thank you, Alessandro, once again for being on the stream. See you all in the next stream. Bye all.
Thank you all. Bye.